Well, welcome to the Funding Native Agriculture session. My name is Carrie Jo Lawrence, and I'm the Director of Programs for the Intertribal Agriculture Council, and I'll be the moderator of this session. First of all, I just want to thank you all for attending this year's conference. I'm very excited to see so many participating, and we want to give a big thank you to all the sponsors of the IAC conference. This session is being sponsored by our Champions of Native Agriculture sponsors, as well as the Native CDFI network. It is my pleasure to introduce Tommy Peterson, a member of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. He is an amazing part of the IAC team, where right now she's finishing out her days as the Great Plains Technical Assistant and will now be taking on the role as the Assistant Director for our American Indian Foods Program. She is going to be an amazing addition there to assist our food producers nationally. She knows firsthand the ins and outs of the opportunities and barriers when it comes to funding native agriculture. She has worked as an egg banker herself and is also a cattle rancher on the Cheyenne River Reservation. So Tommy, take it away.
Hi, I'm gonna share my screen. Alrighty. So welcome everybody. Again, my name is Tommy Peterson. We'll be talking about funding in native agriculture, and more specifically, it'll be focused on your everyday producers, what options are available to your farmers and ranchers all across Indian country. As Carrie Jo said, I am a producer myself. I grew up on a cattle ranch here in South Dakota, and then I was an egg banker. So I've been on both sides of the table, so I kind of understand where people are coming from. And I also understand that for our Native American producers, finding financing can be difficult. There is different barriers you have to overcome. Sometimes a lot of our producers are dealing with lease land. We're dealing with our tribes, and we're on a structure of having to lease our land for our operation in full. There's also that barrier of that a lot of our Native American producers own land, but it's in trust. And that's also a barrier to overcome. As Native American producers, we have to deal with our local tribes. We have to deal with the BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And those are extra things that as Native Americans, we deal with that your normal everyday producer may not have to deal with. And that maybe your options that you have available don't quite understand, or that there's extra risk involved with those things. And then also to note that it is, if you looked at a map of the country and you've seen where there was what they call credit deserts, where there's just a lack of credit available, it's the same places where the reservations are. There is options that are changing that though, so I'm gonna explain a few. So the overview with this webinar, we'll be explaining a few different lending institutions that are available. I'll be spending a lot of time, of course, talking about USDA's, Farm Service Agency's farm loan programs. And then I'm going to spend some time talking about what we call CDFIs, they're Community Development and Financial Institutions. And then I'll spend a little bit of time about local banks and credit unions. And then I'm going to give a few tips that may help some preparation producers can utilize when approaching lenders. So first off, I'm just going to kind of briefly explain all the different loan programs that FSA actually does. They have what's called a microloan, and that is a loan that is $50,000 or less. They are kind of designed for your operating needs of the small and beginning farmers, your non-traditional specialty crops, your niche markets. Microloans are a bit easier. There's less requirement, less paperwork. And then you go into what they call direct operating loans. And FSA's loan limits right now is $400,000 max. They are used to purchase items such as livestock, feed, farm equipment, general farm expenses, family living, and make maybe minor improvements and repairs. That's one of the most common ones used. There's also what's called a direct farm ownership loan. Now that is used to purchase your real estate or make large improvements on existing. And the loan limit on that, of course, is $600,000 or less. I'm also going to give some examples to just kind of tie different options together. So let's just say John Farmer is a native farmer operating in Indian country who has the opportunity to purchase some additional farmland. John lives in an area that is considered a credit desert, and due to these circumstances, traditional financing is difficult to obtain. So, of course, FSA's ownership loan program gave John Farmer a viable lending option to purchase additional acres. FSA, of course, is served in every county across the country. There will be an FSA office. Maybe not in your county, but your county is served. So, some more programs. Some farm loan programs are for your targeted loan audiences. They have what's called youth loans. They're $5,000 or less. They are used to help people participating in your 4-H clubs, in FFA, or a similar organization. They are used to finance educational, income producing, agriculture-related projects. There's also a target for minorities and women. So minority women farmers, ranchers, loans support the full participation of minority and women family farmers in all of FSA's loan programs, targeting a portion of its direct and guaranteed farm ownership operating loan funds to support minorities and women farmers. Also, they are trying to support beginning farmers and ranchers. Those are loans provide credit to eligible family and farm operators who have been in business less than 10 years. A couple examples is you have Jane Rancher, is a young individual that is currently looking to start her own sheep and lamb herd, but there are not many lending options available to begin that are available to your beginning producers in her area in Indian country. So, of course, FSA's operating loan program was a great option for Jane. It was suitable for many beginning farmers and ranchers. Jane Rancher was able to get funding to start her herd, as well as operating loan funds to cover ranch expenses at loan terms that were feasible and reasonable for a young producer who is starting out. I also want to give an example for the youth loans. A lot of those youth loans FSA does, they tie right into this 4-H project. Someone who bought a yearling to show and then sell, of course, but also there's more to it that can be used. So young rancher Jolette is Joe Rancher's daughter. She's 11 years old and enthusiastic about helping her dad on the ranch. And she's also wanting to see if she can start her own herd. So if she goes to FSA's youth loan program, it would allow people between the ages of 10 to 20 years old to borrow up, of course, $5,000 that can be paid back over a 7-year period. She was able to have a setup with her father to help pay expenses in exchange for her labor. She's got to be able to learn the same things, management practices, learning how to be responsible for a live animal, of course, and then learning of, starting to learn about accounting and loan payments and stuff like that. It's small, but I mean, it's a great place to start. And then at the end of the day, she may have some remaining funds that can contribute to her college fund. And then just to wrap FSA up, there's what's called specialty loans. There's the guaranteed loan program. The guaranteed loan program is actually used to help a producer get financing through a actual bank or credit union. The bank or credit union actually goes through the FSA to get a guarantee on their loan that may help with risk, may help with their interest rates, stuff like that. It's out there to help the producer get normal commercial financing. There's also emergency loans that help farmers and ranchers. There's some for, of course, disasters. For your existing producers that are working with FSA, there is disaster set aside to help with your payment structures, stuff like that. So that is FSA in a whole. Of course, I explained a lot, but they do have this handy little tool, the Farm Loan Discovery Tool. You can go to it by visiting farmers.gov/fund. You click the start button and it kind of walks you through everything and maybe what's the best fit for you. At that same time, IAC's technical assistants can also provide you with some direction. They have access to be able to give you the FSA loan applications along with additional resources. So if you do have further questions, I would reach out to your local regional TA and see if If there's some questions they can answer for you, I also say you can reach out to your local FSA director and or loan officer and get the conversation started there if that's something you're looking for. Next, I'm going to talk just a little bit about another option that's out there. It's not a bank, it's not the government, it's they're called Community Development Financial Institutions, CDFI. They're defined as a financial institution that has the primary mission of community development. They have to serve a target market. They provide development services. They have to remain accountable to their community that they're serving, and they are, of course, a non-governmental entity. Now, there's CDFIs popping up all over the country, and a lot of them are native specific, and some of them are even agricultural specific. So I did list some links here that are kind of handy. If you go to nativecdfi.net, they will list native CDFIs, and also CDFI Fund. Certified Native CDFIs is another list. I'm going to explain one CDFI that I work with quite often to help you kind of get a picture of why they're different. Occupan started here in South Dakota. That's why I know a little bit about them. But they're a Native American CDFI that provides loans and technical assistance to those in Indian agriculture. They are actually a nationwide one. They're not community specific, so they can reach all of Indian country. They offer a whole suite of services that include they finance youth, startups, operating costs, and ownership. And they take it a step further. CDFIs take it a step further, and they work with their clients to assess that they have technical support, as well as provide financial literacy and training to help create a knowledgeable borrower. Occupan, being a native CDFI, has some unique abilities to develop maybe some different loan programs. They're not regulated like banks are, so they can truly benefit natives in agriculture maybe differently with some non-typical loan options. And at the same time, they provide your normal loan structuring as well. For more information, I did leave their link at the bottom there. I do want to note that tomorrow, the breakout sessions during the legal and policy at noon to 1 is about CDFIs and agricultural diversification. It is with Lakota Vogel. She is the executive director of the Four Bands Community Fund, and Sky Additional, who is the executive director of Occupan. Both of them are doing a world of good in their communities, and they are a great source of information. I'm just going to spend a little bit of time talking about local banks and credit unions. I mean, as your business utilizes your bank for your accounting services, I mean, everybody's got to have a checking account. It can also be beneficial to foster a relationship with the financing side of the bank, because bankers, they'll play a vital role in helping your business obtain financing, maximizing business funds, and of course, helping producers achieve their goal. Being one, I'm a little biased when I used to be a banker, but you know, your banks that are serving your local communities, it's just your state bank or your community bank, a lot of times the loan officer is the same person you're sitting next to in the grandstands watching the Friday night football game, cheering on your high school team. I mean, it's someone you know, they're from your community, and they actually might know the best way to serve their local area. They know maybe the rules better. And sometimes they don't have to play by the same playbook. FSA as a whole is a great tool, but their handbook that they have to use is based off of a whole nation, and it can't be specific to one area. As a local community bank may have a little bit more leverage in understanding their area more. And if they're not serving their Native American producers, then they can't say they're serving their local community. They need to take that slogan out, because Native producers are a part of that local community, and they need to be served just the same. So having a partnership with a banker, even if you don't get your loan through them, may be helpful in the future. It's never bad to have a banker as a friend, just because they're going to have some insight maybe on markets when there's these disasters this summer and the Small Business Association was giving out those emergency loans. Your local bankers had some information on how to get those done. So I do say that, do do try to make friends with your local banks and credit unions if you can. Also, I'm going to give just some few tips that you can use as a producer when you're getting ready to go to any lender, no matter which one it is. These are universal. They'll help you. First step I would advise is conducting a personal evaluation to determine why you want to be a farmer rancher or why you have been. And the reason I say that is because if you're able to answer this question confidently, then you will be able to convey that confidence to that potential lender. And it can show maybe some trust, because the biggest thing about loaning money is trust. So I do push that. It's a weird question to ask, but I do believe it does help. The second tip is having a written business plan. It is very odd to have farmers and ranchers have a written business plan. But the thing is, most know exactly the goals that they want for their business and how they're going to get there, but they just don't write it down very often. So I would advise that you create an actual formal business plan that explains what are you going to do and how are you going to do it. And by having this in writing, you're able to kind of give a complete picture of your operation to those potential lenders. And then finally, having accurate records. Your financial numbers that you provide are vital to a loan decision, whoever you're going to. So your records, they need to be up to date and accurate. And by records, I mean having a balance sheet, that lists what you own and what current debt you have. Your actual income and expenses, like what are you spending things on and what is the money coming in? And then your cash flow projections. What are you planning? Are you prepared for the next year and the year after that? What is your profit going to be every year? And then I also advise to use record keeping services that are available. There's a lot of free services out there. I've listed a couple examples. They're kind of neat, but there is plenty to use. And if you don't want to use any of these fancy services, just an old system handwriting record keeping is good too. It don't matter what you want to use, but I do advise to have some sort of record keeping. Those are my 3 tips. I do want to note that when it comes down to it, none of these loan services are responsible for the success of your place. I want every producer to know that to take responsibility for the money behind your business, know exactly what's going on, because it is on you. I've had people who they knew that the US Fed had dropped their interest rates, so they could come into my office and argue a lower interest rate because they knew that. And that's, kind of seldom for producers to actually look that up. But I mean, you have to know the money behind your operation and have plans. Know exactly what's going to happen when it rains and the sun shines and everything's working good. Have a plan when the market drops 50 cents a bushel or 20 cents a pound. And then this year is a prime example that sometimes we really do need to have that World War III plan. What's going to happen when things aren't going at all to plan? Know what's going to happen with their money then. So for now, that is a very quick explanation of funding in agriculture. I'll be able to field a bunch of questions because I did get done fairly early.
That's great information, Tommy. And I would just like to remind everybody, if you want to ask a question, go ahead and do so by chatting it on the website there. One of the questions is, how do producers find their local regional technical assistant for IAC?
Oh, perfect. So if you go to our website, actually, I'll just give a tutorial. Share my screen. Maybe I'll share it if I can find something. Maybe I won't. There we go. Can you see the website?
Yep. And then the other question too, after you do this one, is how do we find our local FSA office?
Perfect. Okay. So if you go to www.indianag.org, right now we have our conference up because it's conference time. But if you go to the top and you go under programs, you're able to go to what's called the Technical Assistance Program. And you click on that. And then you scroll down and we have our regions. They're up here, and then you can go down and find the person in your region. So if you're a part of the Great Plains, which is these 3 states right here, you can come down and click on the Great Plains. If you're over in Washington or Oregon, you can go to Northwest or Northwest Washington. Click on that, and you're able to find the information of your TA, their contact info, and get a hold of them. And then at the same time, if you want to find your local FSA office, you go to fsa.usda.gov, and you go to click on your state offices, and you find your state. So let's say you're in Montana. Just click on Montana, and then you go to your county offices right here. And then you just click on your county. So maybe you're over in Powder River, and that gives you your information of your county office, where it's at, and who the farm loan manager is, which is the person who will be in charge of the farm loan program.
Great, thank you. That'll be very helpful for people. So there's another question that came in about the record keeping. Do those services cost money?
The 3 I listed, I believe, are free. The one with the one that I like the most, the farm management open one, does probably cost money. But if you just look it up, there's lots of free sites that are available. There's your old-fashioned handwritten ones too as well. So.
Okay, great. So you were talking about the different lenders and maybe some advantages to going with your local banker. Can you maybe discuss a little bit about the difference between funding institutions, let's say like the big corporate lenders compared to a small town banker? Are there big differences there?
Yeah, there is big differences. Of course, if you're dealing with a big one, like Wells Fargo, they may have more funding capacity, but they're also kind of that same idea. They have to go by the same handbook because they're covering a whole nation. They can't really be specific, and sometimes their policies show that they won't, change their policies or be favorable in one area. Because when you're covering anywhere from New Mexico to Idaho to Maine, it's hard to have policies that are universal and then still focus on serving your communities. But they could be great tools. They do have maybe some different options. They do have, of course, a large funding capacity to give you larger loans. But then your local communities, community banks, their policies maybe can show how they're serving their community. If they are a community bank that is serving on a reservation, maybe they actually have developed policies that match how to help people get a land on their trust or loan on their trust land by going through the BIA. I'm not promising that, I'm just saying that that's where banks could be more favorable. But of course, community banks may not have the funding capacity to loan those larger loans. They may have higher interest rates sometimes because they do need to make more money because of their funding caps and stuff like that. So that's kind of the difference there. They're great tools. They have their ups and downs. It's just kind of what works for you, what I found.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's great information. Okay. Well, I don't see anything else coming in from the question side. If you want to. think we can be finishing up.
Perfect.
Well, thank you for attending, everybody. And if you have questions, like Tommy said, please reach out to your local technical assistants. Our website, indianag.org, is an amazing resource to find information and to find one of us to visit with. We look forward to seeing you and seeing you throughout the week as well. Thank you.
Okay, Tommy, I made you the host, so I guess you're the one that will have to stop the video.
Okay. Do I just end it?
You can end it for all.